So what we're going to do is we're here to expose it, let people tell their story, and let everybody in the public see the horrors of the court system in Suffolk County, New York.
Long Island Backstory.
Hi, I'm Gary Jacobs, and welcome to another edition of Long Island Backstory. We're filming at the Alt Studios, formerly Cablevision, in Hot Dog. My next guest today, many of you are going to be familiar with, especially here on Long Island, Sean Bergen, formerly of News 12. As an advocate for parents and co-parenting, rather than giving one parent full custody and relegating the other one to a visitor, usually the father, I always bring up that it's not just a matter of the poor father gets hurt, that all the problems that occur from a child being raised without a father in their home. I always talk about the drugs, the teen pregnancy, the gangs, the gun violence, the depression, just to name a few of the consequences. And it drives me crazy that this problem is largely ignored by the mainstream media. Maybe when you hear Sean Bergen's story, you'll see why. He has the courage, and I say yes, the courage to speak out, because most people who speak out know what happens, and we'll get to the story and what happened to our next guest. But first, I just want to start with a clip, which is really where this whole problem began.
This same sick, perverse line of thinking is evident from Jersey City to Newark and Patterson to Trenton. It has made the police officer's job impossible, and it has got to stop. The underlying cause for all of this, of course, young black men growing up without fathers. Unfortunately, no one in the news media has the courage to touch that subject.
So Sean, welcome to the program. So we just saw that clip. So tell me, what it ended up that your comments that led you to being fired? You were speaking the truth.
Some people think I was speaking the truth.
So there's an argument as to whether it's even true what you're saying?
That's right. That's what I was told by my news director, Pat Dolan. He said what I said was my opinion. And I said, my opinion, sir, is backed up by a mountain of data. I said the statistics on this are absolutely staggering. I said the statistics come from the FBI's crime statistics, the U.S. Bureau of Prisons, the National Institutes of Mental Health. I mean, these are agencies that in the news business you would quote as facts.
Right.
In the meantime, as he's telling me that this is mere opinion, our phones were blowing up at News 12. And I said, you mean to tell me that you think these people that are calling here right now are furious because they think that I phrased something in the form of an opinion? They're calling because they're convinced that what I said was a statement of fact. No different than if I had walked out on set and announced that the sky is blue. But I said, you have to relegate what I said as mere opinion, mere conjecture, because really all I did was uncover liberalism's dirty little secret.
So really, the reason you were fired wasn't for giving, I misunderstood. I thought it was for giving your opinion.
Oh, that's what he said.
But it's really not. It's actually, you were stating, I mean, I saw the clips and I saw you were stating a fact.
For most people, unless you're a white liberal who's running away from the truth, because these folks will twist themselves into knots trying to explain away the fact that we have a very big problem in this country with black criminality, and that problem is driven by fatherlessness, and fatherlessness is driven by the wrecking ball known as modern liberalism. And that's the point of the discussion, the point of the argument that they never, ever want to get to.
Well, let's just be, would you say that the same thing in the white community, that children who are raised without fathers have these same issues as the black community?
They most
the percentages
do.
Just may not be as high.
No, they're not as high. I mean, in the black community, you're looking at a fatherless rate of somewhere around 73 to 75%. But the fact of the matter is, nowhere do these pathologies that we've been talking about play out quite like they do in the black community, because you have such a gang culture, and it's glorified in the music and the videos and the video games and the movies. It is a culture. It is a part of black culture where these young men, because they don't have fathers, gravitate and drift into the gangbanger lifestyle. And from there, you've got two routes. You can go to the morgue or you can go to prison. And quite often, they end up going to both.
So News 12 calls you in. I can't mean, what's the conversation? They see the show, the dope, is it Pat Dolan?
Yeah.
And they call you in and they say, hey, we have to let you go because you gave an opinion?
First, that's right. First I was called in, and I spoke to the assistant news director, and he said, you broke the rules, you violated company policy, it's, the corporate hand, you're not allowed to voice your opinion. I phrased this in the form of an opinion. I said, Jim, this is the assistant news director, Jim Whiteman, Jim, sometimes you have to break the rules in order to do the right thing. And I said if I had it to do over again, I would change absolutely nothing. We have young black men who are slaughtering one another en masse in cities across the country. The same scene is playing out in every American city you go to.
Absolutely.
And when these young men are not gunning each other down on the street, they're catching little kids in the crossfire, they're executing cops, they're engaged in acts of mob violence. When they're not beating the hell out of one another, they're beating the hell out of their school teachers, or they're slugging out unsuspecting white folks as they walk down the streets in this knockout game. Let me run a little statistic by you. African Americans make up 13% of the American population, and this is not meant in any way as a moral put down, because most of the victims of these crimes are black. All right, so let's start there. All right, this is for those of you who want to yell the racist term. All right, which I think that term has been rendered just about meaningless thanks to the idiots who wield it as a weapon. African Americans make up 13% of the American population. But if you throw out all the old people, and all the really young people, and all the women, what you're left with is young black men between the ages of 18 and 49. They make up 4% of the American population, yet they are responsible for 53% of the homicides. Now, if we as a society are not looking at that and saying, what the hell is going on over there, then the people who do that want to look, they're the racists. Right. Because they're assuming that black people can't handle the truth. And what they want to do is they want to treat African Americans like children and say, no, we're going to withhold this information from them because it might hurt somebody's feelings.
But if they speak out about it, what happens to somebody who speaks out about it could happen to you.
Well,
it's
yeah,
sort of a great way to shut people up.
Well, yeah, they've been doing that.
I mean, listen, if you give commentary on whether an ice cream tasted good or not, nobody cares.
No, if I had waltzed out on set and announced that, listen, it's about time we came around with the gay marriage thing, I don't think anybody would have had anything to say about it.
So it was the issue.
It's politically correct to say that, and look, the fact of the matter is News 12 and Newsday, like 95% of the news media, is nothing more than a liberal propaganda mill. That's all it is. And when you step outside of that liberal ideology, you criticize that liberal ideology, you are, branded stupid, racist, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, whatever they can use to back you up to get away from going at the truth.
Now you were a reporter. Now you're more of a commentary. But when you were a reporter, do you think that reporting and personal commentary go together, or should we have separate people who just report the news as it is, and people who give a little bit of commentary and extra facts?
Well, it depends on what station you work for and who you are. I mean, if you're Don Lemon and you're sitting on the set of CNN, then you're free to voice your opinion all you like. But if you're
on Fox News, they give their opinion too.
But they have strict commentators who are there to commentate, and they draw a very bright line between their commentary and their news analysis. The problem with news outlets like the New York Times or the Washington Post is that they've taken the editorial page and put it on the front page, and then they have duped most of the American public. Not anymore. I mean, the American public, they really woke up to that fact over the last election. But they have woken up to the fact that, the cat's out of the bag with this liberal bias stuff. People know what it looks like, they know what it sounds like, they know it has to do with the stories that are covered, the stories that are not covered, and the emphasis and repetition that they place on those stories that they choose to be covered. Right. And there's a lot of stories that the mainstream media doesn't want to go anywhere near. They didn't want to go near the IRS. They laid down like lambs for Barack Obama for 8 years, and any member of the media who does not want to recognize that is simply incapable of being honest with themselves.
Well, let's going to Long Island in News 12, because sadly, most people here on Long Island, we get it from one source. At the time, Newsday and Cablevision were one.
They still are.
So I thought they sold off the Newsday branch.
Oh, Pat Dolan is the news director at News 12, and he just bought a majority stake in Newsday. Newsday is a cop-hating, anti-conservative liberal rag sheet. That's what Newsday is, and that's why they have no readership. Because if you look at the last election, Suffolk County went very bright red for Donald Trump. And if you were going to scorn, ridicule, or ignore half your readership, then you deserve to fail.
Now, when I do this show on public access, so I can do whatever I want. I have a day job. I don't have any sponsors. Yeah, exactly. But we'll see if I get silent. But Mike,
see if you make it out of the parking lot, pal.
It used to piss me off that I'd say everybody sends in these stories to News 12, and I say, don't waste the paper. They're not going to cover it. Why didn't News 12, or doesn't News 12, cover all these stories of corruption, of crime? Well, let's talk about the budget in Suffolk County. We're freaking sinking. And to me, I think people will say, oh, it's anti-cop to say that we can't pay them that much money.
Oh, no.
I don't think it's anti-cop to say that we can't afford to pay them.
Let's divide that right up right now. That is a fiscal issue. That's not a law enforcement issue.
Well, we don't talk about it on News 12. Why?
Because Steve Malone is a liberal Democrat. Are you going to tell me that Steve Levy, as a Republican, if he had pulled a stunt like that, it'd be Pearl Harbor headlines on Newsday every day of the week? That guy is a protected class. He's a liberal Democrat politician.
So you believe?
Do you even know what the budget deficit in Suffolk County is?
I know it's out of control, but I have no idea what it is.
Well, you know what?
They're not telling me. They should be telling me. You'd think it would be front page of the news, like a clicker.
They should be shouting it from the rooftops.
Right. Well, what is it? Because people are watching.
I think projected for 2017, it's about $130 million.
$130 million. That's unbelievable. And our taxes keep going up with these hidden taxes. But all these stories about these hidden taxes, whether it's the red light cameras, they talk about the guy who chopped it down, but they don't get to the real core of the issue of
Where's that money going?
why we're doing it. Right. They don't talk about that on News 12. We don't talk about the judges being corrupt. Well, there's so much corruption out there. All these wiretaps the FBI did. It's not in the news.
No.
To me, News 12 fills space to get to the commercial. Nothing against you, because you were on there.
Listen, and nothing against the reporters over there. Let's make it very clear. I worked in that newsroom for 7 years, and I can tell you right now, categorically and definitively, those reporters and photographers are some of the best in the business. And after working there for 7 years, I don't know the political slant of any one of them, because it was never ever discussed. Swear to God. Now, the management over there, they're a bunch of frothing at the mouth, stark raving liberals, a bunch of gray-haired hippies who got their foot stuck in the summer of love. They're all into advocacy journalism and giving a voice to the voiceless and comforting comfort the all that happy nonsense they fill your head with in these liberal journalism schools. The job of the journalist is to inform the public. It's to let people know what the hell is going on. That's it. Put the period right there. You're not supposed to go out and start protecting these liberal grievance groups, whether it's illegal aliens or Muslims or this one or that one. Just let us know what the hell is going on. And they don't do that over there.
So, my opinion, and I don't know what you think about this, it frustrated me that they never cover the corruption in the court system and how the judges, we don't have any right to choose who the judges because the political party leaders cross-endorse them and they have 4 judges for 4 positions. And I always thought it was because Cablevision is a monopoly and they don't want to piss off these judges who may be challenging them in court, and the politicians they don't want to piss off because they're giving them this monopoly. They advertise, they do all these things. They don't want to upset them. What do you think about that? Do you think there's any truth in the reason? Because why wouldn't they cover all the corruption in politics? They cover it when it gets out in the bigger media, but they don't break these stories. People write it all the time. You must have seen the faxes come through with stories of corruption. They don't seem to cover them. Why is it that they don't cover so many stories? I get that they don't want to cover, they're liberal and they don't want to go against the liberals. Why don't they go against the corruption in the judicial system?
I don't know. It's probably, look, nothing makes it on air over at News 12 unless Pat Dolan likes it. So if Pat likes it, then
there's no committee? I always wonder how they pick this. I think I picture a committee sitting around saying we have 300 stories today.
We have a morning editorial meeting where we all sit around the table and we pick stories that we think Pat Dolan will like.
Right.
That's it.
Because you know what? If you don't, it's going to be shot down.
It's not going to make it on the air.
Right.
The whole culture over there is geared toward keeping Pat happy. That's it.
Even still to this day.
I don't know what it's like today. I'm out of there, but I wouldn't surprise me if it was. I mean, those people out there are desperate to hang on to their jobs. I mean, nobody out there is going to do anything to piss off the boss. And I was a liberal. I mean, I was a freelance guy. I worked at 3 News 12s, and I had to cobble together a work week by making sure I stayed on good terms with everybody. So, I had about as much leverage as the potheads who came in and watered the plants once a week.
But I find it interesting, we talk about them being liberal, but I speak to a lot of people who have worked at Cablevision, and they all tell me they don't pay fair wages, and they don't treat their employees well. They don't want unions, they stop the union from coming. So a liberal place, I guess it's okay if they're liberal, as long as it doesn't affect them.
Well, that's how liberals are. I mean, don't you see these guys at the UN? They live like royalty. Same at Cablevision. They've got like 5 corporate aircraft. They're flying around in Gulfstream jets. Jimmy Dolan commutes from Woodbury to Manhattan and back again via helicopter, right? And they pay I made more money working as a waiter in New York City 15 years ago than I did as an on-air reporter.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I talk to people who were there and they tell me on the side.
Not if you're management.
No, not management. They don't talk to me, so I don't talk to the management.
Yeah, they're like democratic socialists, for Christ's sake. They're limousine liberals or Learjet liberals.
Right, but it's just unbelievable how they treat their employees.
But listen, that's how liberals, look at Al Gore. I mean, you see Al Gore driving around in a Prius?
Right, yeah, we've heard about the...
How about Leo DiCaprio? I mean, he gets in a Gulfstream jet to fly to a party halfway across, but he'll get up and he'll lecture everybody about, their carbon footprint. Right. They're the biggest hypocrites in the world. Right. If you have 2 managers at News 12 getting together for a discussion that lasts more than 10 minutes, it's a catered event. That's the truth.
That's unbelievable. How could they not make money? I mean, they got the whole island. They don't pay well.
Listen, there were when Altice came in to take over, 300 executives in Cablevision, all making in excess of $300,000 a year. 300, and you know that there's a lot of them making $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 a year.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, do you think that the news is a form of entertainment?
Yeah.
So you do. So now going into that, you're sort of moving off. I listened to your show, and we'll talk about that. You do a show now on WLINY, which is internet radio. So that must be, first of all, you have a lot more time to speak. You get to say what you want, but is that, you look at that as entertainment, or do you still look at yourself as a reporter? What would you say?
No, I'm a commentator.
Now you're a commentator. What I found interesting about your show, and I listened to it, I saw you on News 12, and I said, this guy's just a straight shooter. I just thought you were part of the team. And I said, another idiot who doesn't understand the corruption going on here on Long Island. It was just frustrating to me. Now I hear you on WLAMY, and you speak for an hour or two, and I listen. I said, man, this guy gets it. How is it that you know about all this corruption? You didn't just learn it from your case, what happened to you. But you seem to know about all the political corruption, the taxes, the fiscal irresponsibility here on Long Island. Is it from hearing these stories that you couldn't?
Well, I listen.
So you have people that you came in, you couldn't report on them, but you heard all the stuff that was coming.
So when you're a news reporter at a place like News 12, you walk in the morning and they hand you an assignment and they say, this is what you're covering today. You know, you don't walk in as a reporter and say, this is what I want to cover. You know, unless you're pitching a story at a planning meeting and it's not going to be but day of air reporting, you go with what they tell you. You carry out orders. Go cover this. That's it. And you go do it.
Right.
And you better cover it the way that they want you to cover it. Because at the end of the day, you know, one of those gray-haired hippies I was telling you about is going to copy edit your news package.
No, you don't get a second chance. I'm surprised they don't just call you in and say, Sean, look, you shouldn't have done that. Don't do that ever again. That's not the way it works?
No.
So they wanted you out. I mean, to me, I say they wanted you out.
There is no strong male presence anywhere in the News 12 organization. If you're a 22-year-old girl or somebody who's going to bend in the wind like a reed, then you've got a home at News 12.
Right.
But if you look like a substantial, capable guy who's got a mind of his own, they don't want you anywhere near you.
Yeah,
I give those guys the tremors, for Christ's sake.
So let's talk about Long Island, since this is mostly shown on Long Island. What are your concerns about Long Island as far as the fiscal position that we're in here on Long Island? What are your concerns?
Well, the concerns. I'm not married. I have no kids in the school system. You know, I'm kind of an aberration that way. But if you're trying to raise a family and start out on Long Island, the taxes are just prohibitive, and they keep going and going and going. And it's not just Long Island; it's New York State. You've got people who work in New York City who've got to commute. Those commuter fees are going through the roof. So they've just made it impossible for good, hard-working to live here.
Right. So what can we do to stop it? Is it too entrenched? Because we keep re-electing. You know, I hear people complain in the groups phenomenon. We talk about these problems, but then we go ahead and we re-elect the same people who put us in this position. So it's sort of a mandate. In their mind, I would say, if I'm them, if I'm Steve Ballone, and we're saying, hey, he's spending too much, he's giving too much to certain groups, but he got re-elected again. And we keep re-electing the same people who are causing the problems. Yeah. Isn't that a mandate?
You would think it would be, you know? I mean, there's got to be somebody out there like Trump, right, who's going to stand up and take on the news media and take on the system and take on this entrenched, political bureaucracy that acts like royalty. I mean, it's all corrupt, all of it.
Now, I know from listening to your show again, I know you're a huge supporter of police officers, as am I. Is it fair to say that we can't afford to pay them what we're paying them and still be pro-police officer? Listen, because I get criticized all the time, and I say it, they go, you're anti-police. No, I'm not. No. I call them when something happens.
That's a cop-out, and they know it. Let me tell you something.
But it worked, because nobody will say it.
The police gig in Suffolk County is probably the best police job in the world. There's no doubt about it.
Probably? I think definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know because I'm not a cop,
right.
All right? Now, I'm all for paying police officers as much as you possibly can. However, there does come a point where you go off the fiscal cliff and it becomes prohibitive. I mean, when you look at what the cops get paid in Newark, New Jersey, and compare it to what the cops get in Suffolk County, I mean, I don't know what the salary difference is, and I didn't negotiate that last deal, but I know Ballone gave the police union, he gave them everything they wanted, right, without any kind of negotiation. Because the guy's a pushover.
And what I say is, look, we have court officers. To me, a court officer is just as dangerous, if not more. There's fights that break out all the time. There's people going through bad.
Yeah, they're state employees, right?
Yeah, we don't pay them anything. Yeah, they're state. They make no money. I mean, not no money, but relative to, I think the cops make 5 or 6 times. You know,
Suffolk Police.
Suffolk Police.
Yeah, they got a good deal.
And I'm like, that's just unbelievable. And the municipal workers, I'm not saying the municipal workers should make the same thing, but we couldn't give them any raise.
Do you know what the salary breakdown is?
What are they, $30,000, $40,000 for municipal workers here?
No, I'm talking about the Suffolk County Police.
Oh no, I've heard it's up to $160,000, $170,000, and then when they leave, they get to keep their vacation pay at the higher rate, so they walk away with $400,000, $500,000.
Even
checks.
Jimmy Burke.
Even Jimmy Burke is still getting. That's a subject that you spoke. And in fact, I've called it in your show, and we spoke about that problem because everybody on Long Island, most of us who were involved in this in Long Island, knew that Jim Burke was corrupt. Right? Everybody seemed to know about it. How did this guy get so damn far in Long Island? How did he keep moving up? Everybody knew about it. From Spoda, I'm sure Spoda knew about it. Probably he's corrupt too. That's why he's doing it. Certainly Malone knew, because we see the copy of the letter that was sent to every police officer in the frickin' precinct knew. How did this happen here? I mean, to me, it's so entrenched.
You're right.
It's right. I mean, I think up to the governor's office personally.
Yeah.
That it comes down that when the Moreland Commission, and then all this corruption started coming out, and all of a sudden he pulled the rug from the Moreland Commission.
And most importantly, I was working at News 12 when that happened. I remember when he decided to pull the plug on the Moreland Commission. And you know what News 12 ran that day?
What were they running?
Nothing.
Didn't even mention it.
Didn't even mention it.
But I can see why. Why does News 12 want to piss off anybody in politics? I mean, these guys got a great gig, News 12.
Well, they got a stranglehold on the flow of information on Long Island.
There is no other source on Long Island, like you said.
Well, I mean, you get the network affiliates out of the city, but they're only covering 1 or 2 stories on the island a day.
Yeah, and you don't see all this corruption there also. I mean, they'll put when the FBI wiretaps. I think New York Times published.
Yeah, well, de Blasio, he's no, he's not squeaky clean. He's going down, and the corruption in Albany that place has been a cesspool for as long as.
But it seems to have stopped, Sean. It seems to they went after a few people. Spoda's still sitting there right now. We have a judge, Prudenti. We have an attorneys on wiretaps talking about, all you got to do is pay $500 and rent this boat.
Yeah.
And you get off. He's still practicing.
Was it Prudent? Was he with the DA's office?
Yeah. And we have McParland. All these guys they're still there. How is Spoda still there when even whether you like Malone or not? I think his quote was he was running a criminal organization.
Whose quote?
That Malone said of Spoda when they were having their feud. That Spoda was running a criminal organization. Our district freaking attorney.
Yeah, I think he's under federal investigation though.
I just can't understand that they let the guy at least suspend him. The guy's making decisions every day, putting people in jail.
Or not putting them in jail.
Or if they're a friend, it depends what side you're on.
I think that's I think that was the problem with him, was that he was engaging in selective enforcement.
Absolutely, yeah. There's people who got off that shouldn't have, and to me, our jails are so full on Long Island. But talking about the jails, what about all these people we have in jail for small drug issues, whether it's marijuana, or we have a lot of people in jail for child support. What's your feeling on some of those issues?
Well, I mean, I don't know that locking up, a dime bag, a dime bagger for, some guy caught selling a couple of joints in the park is going to help anybody. I don't see how that serves society. I don't see how it serves the taxpayer or the criminal, for that matter. I mean, I'm all for keeping the violent guys behind bars.
Absolutely.
And locking them up and keeping them there.
Yeah, that's my always. Put the guys who. I don't say it's a victimless crime, but somebody falls on child support, you put him in jail. We both know somebody, Dr. Rivera, 6 months in jail for falling behind on his child support at the cost.
You talking about Dr. Carlos?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he got railroaded.
How crazy is that?
It's insane.
That it cost us 4 times what he owed to lock him up, and he lost his practice.
Yeah.
So now he's living off of you and I paying taxes. Unbelievable. What about gun control? What's your thoughts on gun control? Because if you're News 12, you don't get to say everything. So you talk about it on your show, all these issues. What is your feeling on gun control?
The statistics show.
Do we need less?
The statistics show. All of the research, all of the data shows more guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens equals less crime. Everywhere you go, that's the best guy to look into the research on that is Dr. John Lott. He's a former Yale University professor. He's got a PhD in this stuff. And the fact of the matter is that when you disarm lawful, law-abiding citizens, the crime rate goes through the roof. We've seen it in cities in America. We've seen it in countries around the world, whether it's England or Ireland or Jamaica or Australia. All you need to do is look at the statistical data and the crime stats, and they don't lie.
We're starting to run out of time, and I wanted to get this question to you. Do we have freedom of the press?
No.
Because I feel like we don't.
Yeah, we're not alone in that. A lot of people understand we don't have freedom of the press.
But the person who's watching this show says, of course we do. These guys got to sit here today and do the show, but there could be repercussions. Nobody can hold anything against me. But I don't believe there is freedom of the press. We get shut up. I'm not allowed in the court. I try to get a press pass to get into the court. They don't give it to me. They give it to News 12 and Newsday because I'm not a mainstream.
We have freedom
media.
of the press more so than you see in other countries.
Absolutely.
But I think the underlying question should be, are the people getting the truth? And the fact, that's just plain, that's a fabrication.
Yeah, I absolutely.
No, they're not cutting anywhere close. Look, I mean, the Pew Research Center said that 96% of the people who work in the news media vote Liberal Democrat. So you're getting one side of the news.
Right. In the last 2 minutes that we have, tell me, what is it that you're doing now, and what are your plans going forward? Where can people hear you? You have a lot of followers. In fact, we're going to show some of the pro people out there fighting for you when you were let go. So you have a lot of supporters out there. I see the listenership as people start to find you on WLIMY.com. The listenership keeps going up. Your show is great. I can't stop. You got got a lot of energy. I can't follow you very fast.
Starting to get a little traction with the radio show. I mean, the internet radio is really kind of wild because we're broadcast all over the world, and now I've got listeners in England, in Ireland, in Canada, Vancouver. So I do the radio show one day a week for 2 hours a night, Thursday nights from 8 to 10. It gives me I like the radio medium because it affords you the opportunity to really do a deep dive into complex issues that you'll never ever be able to get to doing local TV news. In a local TV news story, you've given about 90 seconds to get into it. So I like radio, I like the medium, I like internet radio. I can say whatever the hell I want, how I want. I've had some great guests on recently. Congressman Lee Zeldin was on not long ago. A lot of guys from law enforcement. So that's what I'm doing as far as that goes.
Because I see this show getting syndicated all over the place. I mean, it's a great show.
Oh, thanks.
And I think anybody who listens to it, as I see the comments going down, you tell it the way it is.
Yeah, I try to.
And people know, listen, it could be your opinion, but you tell it the way you see it. You get everything. You listen to other people.
Listen, you can accept it, you can reject it, you can tell me to go shove it, and either way is fine with me. I don't care. But let's get it out there and at least have a discussion about it.
And we need that here. Listen, we need that on Long Island.
We need that everywhere, man.
We need it everywhere, but especially here on Long Island.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think for too long, Long Islanders have been fed half the news, given one side of the news, and the guys in the newsroom over at Newsday and News 12 decide for the people of Long Island what they think the news is.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a bunch of nonsense.
I mean, we literally have one or two people controlling what 90-something% of us see here on Long Island, and if that's not a problem, I don't know what is. So I urge everybody who really wants to get the full story about Long Island and get at least another perspective, as Sean said, whether you agree or not, go to WLINY.com. You can listen live. I live stream it in my car when I'm driving. You can watch it in your office, and you can see the podcast after if you missed the show, and you can call in and speak to Sean. And I'm sure we're going to see more because this show is going to get picked up and is definitely going to end up being a national show. Sean, thanks very much for joining us.
It was a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on, man. It was a lot of fun.
Please share the show. Get the word out. WLINY, an alternate source for news here on Long Island. Thank you very much.
Long Island Backstory. Chief Correspondent Gary Jacobs is uncovering the truth on Long Island. The family court system. Red light cameras. Corruption in local politics. The heroin epidemic. Corrupt judges. At Long Island Backstory, we uncover the truth that the Cablevision news monopoly won't dare touch. We uncover the details you won't see on News 12 or in Newsday. We are local independent media at its best. Long Island Backstory, available on Public Access TV and on YouTube. Long Island Backstory. Long Island Backstory.